All right, and go for it, Joyce. Welcome.
Hey, yes, indeed. Welcome to Get Notice for Board Service, a webinar hosted by Executive Alliance, the premier organization dedicated to promoting women in leadership in Maryland. We welcome our Executive Alliance members and guests, in particular guests from Leaderboard, a national network of member organizations dedicated to advancing women to the boardroom, of which Executive Alliance is a member. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joyce Coombs. I am a principal at the law firm of Offutt Kerman, based in its Baltimore office. I have extensive experience restructuring and refinancing businesses and advising at the C-suite and board level. As co-chair of Women on Boards Committee of Executive Alliance, I also serve on Executive Alliance's board of directors. I will also be serving as moderator today. We are very pleased to have with us as presenters representatives from Bolster, the Director Diversity Initiative, more commonly known as DDI at University of North Carolina School of Law at Chapel Hill, and Equilar, each of these maintain databases of board-eligible women to facilitate access to national board searches by public and private companies. Executive Alliance members have access to these databases free of charge as a member benefit. Just a few housekeeping matters. As Rebecca noted at the top of this webinar, we are recording this session, and the recording will be available to our members and guests, as will the slides of each presenter. Please add your questions to the chat feature, and we will address them at the end of the presentation as time permits. I will introduce each panelist, who will have 10 to 12 minutes to give you an overview of what their organization has to offer and their databases. I'm pleased to first introduce Katie Berger, Head of People and Talent Consulting at Bolster. And I really love that description, Katie. An executive search firm that matches CEOs with transformational executives, mentors, and board members. Her passion is building highly effective teams and people-focused workplaces. Take it away, Katie.
All right, thank you for that intro. Yes, my title encompasses quite a bit. All right. Can everyone see that first slide? Great. All right, so I am joining from Bolster. We are an executive search firm. We are tech-enabled, so we use AI-generated tools to help surface candidates that companies may not normally find. So we primarily do full-time search, but our goal is really to match CEOs with executives regardless of what type of executives they need. So we do a lot of board of directors searches, as well as on-demand hiring. And we also have a leadership consulting arm of the business, which is really intended to help our clients at each stage. So you bring someone on, we can help make sure that they're integrated well into the team.
Good, how are you?
Oh, I think, Danielle, you might need to mute.
I will.
All right, thank you. So a little more about Bolster. We were founded in 2020, so right at the beginning of the pandemic. We have 8 co-founders who had previously started and scaled a global enterprise SaaS company. We're a remote first business. Over the past few years, we've expanded from just fractional executive search into full-time search as well. And we've built a team of recruiters who work on those searches from top search firms like Diversa, Riviera Partners, and SPMB. And at this point, we've completed over 400 placements of executives, and those are across all different types of roles. So, fractional and interim roles, full-time, as well as board of directors roles. So one thing that we're really proud of as we approach our search business is that we really have a progressive approach to the candidates we source and, to the types of people who we're trying to place into roles. So we firmly believe that in today's work environment and moving forward, diversity matters, and it matters a lot. And we are really lucky to work with a lot of clients who understand the benefits of building a diverse executive team and to building a diverse board. So we partner with a lot of different professional organizations like this one to make sure that we're building a membership base of candidates who we can tap into as we work on filling these roles. And our goal is really to surface and be able to place people who might not have been considered for that type of role in the past. So just a little bit about, our search business. So as I mentioned, a lot of our focus right now is on our full-time executive search. We really focus on taking a lot of the heavy lifting off of the client's plate, and help them recruit qualified candidates, providing guidance. And again, with this member network that we're building,
Teams.
it gives us access to, it helps us surface candidates who may not normally have been surfaced by that company if they were trying to search on their own or using a different search firm.
Yeah.
We also do on-demand hiring, as I mentioned. So this is going to be, project-based fractional interim roles. So, the nice part about joining Bolster, and in my deck, I'll give you a link to join at the end if you're not already a member, is that you get to essentially select what types of roles you're interested in. So if you're just looking for board of directors, totally fine. If you're interested in, perhaps board of directors roles and also being considered for a mentor or a coach, you can note that on your profile as well. With our on-demand hiring, we hire for these roles exclusively from our member network. So, we have over 16,000 vetted C-level executives in there right now. And I would love to invite all of you to join this network as well to make sure that you're being considered for the roles that we're filling. And board searches is also a big part of what we do and a big part of what I work on. So we're finding that there are a lot of companies, we work primarily with startup and scale up VC-backed companies. We also work with some self-funded PE-backed, as well as public companies, but we're finding again that CEOs are really interested in building out a diverse board of directors, and that the people who they're placing on their board of directors don't necessarily have to have prior board experience. So we're just seeing this as a really good time for people to find their first corporate board role if that's something that you're interested in doing, which I'm assuming all of you are. So again, we have a team that's made up of experienced recruiters. We are tech enabled, so we're building the executive search tool with a lot of input from our executive recruiters. Basically it encompasses everything that they wish they had had in their prior roles, and then we closely partner with our clients to make sure that we're finding them and surfacing the best candidates. So just to give you a sense of some of the companies who we work with, some of these names you might notice, again, a lot of these are going to be PE-backed companies, but Glowforge, Kickstarter, Help Scout, Quizlet. So, we've done multiple placements with a lot of these companies to help them build out their executive teams and boards. We also work through a lot of the top VCs. So to give you a sense of where some of our clients are coming from and some of these companies that would be looking for board members, we've done placements within Foundry Group, Union Square Ventures. We've done a lot with prior Techstars companies, etc. Yeah, and then just to finish up, Bolster is, as we mentioned at the beginning, this is a free network to join as a member. So I encourage all of you to sign up. With all of our searches, we always start with our membership network. So before we go and source externally, we're going to look and see if we have the right profiles within our actual network of executives first. I also run weekly VIP onboarding sessions. So if you do decide to sign up for Bolster, there's a link here to where you can sign up for an onboarding session with me. I just essentially get a sense, first of all, of what you're looking for, so we can make sure we keep an eye out for you. And also, give you insight into how to optimize your Bolster profile. If we have time, we'll get into LinkedIn as well, just to, try and make sure that it includes what we feel like should be included to make sure that you're coming up as companies are looking for executives, and then also a couple of ebooks to share as well. So that is Bolster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I don't know if you were going to share, but there you are.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Katie. Our next presenters are Lisa Broom, Burton Craig Distinguished Professor and Director of the Director Diversity Initiative at the University of North Carolina School of Law, Chapel Hill. Many of you know Lisa. Lisa wears a number of hats at the law school. But the one we've asked her to wear today is as head of DDI, which works to foster the inclusion of underrepresented groups on corporate boards nationwide. And joining Lisa today is Jennifer De La Rosa, Director of Business Operations. And so now I'll turn it over to Lisa and Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce, and it's terrific to be here with the Executive Alliance. So we have a presentation similar to the one that you just heard. We have been around since 2006. Let's go to the next slide. And we help aspiring board members, as Joyce mentioned, particularly those from underrepresented groups. We're going to talk today about two things that we do. One is our database, and also some of the educational programming that we offer throughout the year. But in addition to that, we also have on our website a clearinghouse of the many other organizations which help to support diverse populations, as well as which are focused on corporate governance generally. So we hope that that can be a resource to all of you, because we believe not one organization can do everything for everyone. We also periodically perform a census of the board diversity of North Carolina publicly traded companies. So let's talk about our database. We have over 1,000 people in our database who have registered themselves for that database. We don't scrape info from anywhere. We have you put your own self in the database, and we crested the 1,000 mark a month or two ago. It is an extremely diverse database, with over 70% of its members being women, over 55% people of color, and 45% of our database hails from North Carolina. As the database enlarges, gets larger over time, that percentage has been going down steadily. So searches of our database are done at the request of executive search firms, groups like the Leaderboard that share opportunities with us, NomGov committee chairs that get in touch with us, some of our alums. Since we've been around since 2006, we have people who are serving on boards who reach back to us to ask us to provide seats, to provide names for board searches. So we were kind of rocking along for a number of years at about 10 to 12 searches per year, until the unfortunate murder of George Floyd in 2020, when we started getting a number of inquiries, and they just have ballooned since then. We're on pace in 2024 to match the 57 searches that we did in 2023. There are a few more that we've done since this slide was prepared last May. So what about our successes? Well, we've had a number of successes, not every one of those searches, obviously, because many of the people who are requesting names from us are getting names from a number of different sources. On the right-hand side of the screen is our homepage, and that shows some of our most recent successes. And then the left-hand side is from the impact page, which you could navigate to from our homepage, that shows kind of all of our successes over time. I will say that in terms of direct placements that we were involved in, since the beginning of this calendar year, we have learned about 8 of those. 3 were of nonprofit board seats, but 8 were for-profit companies, 2 public companies, 1 public company seat, 1 company from Nigeria, 1 very large and well-known private company, and 1 advisory board for a private company. So we're quite pleased with that. But we count successes as anyone who is in our network who may have attended some of our programs and then subsequently received a board seat. So with respect to the searches that we did last year in 2023, just for kicks, we went back and analyzed what were people looking for when they came to us. So this represents 57 board seat searches. And perhaps no surprise, the number one thing that people were looking for was financial expertise, oftentimes for somebody to be on or lead an audit committee. After that, I was somewhat surprised that last year we had a lot of requests for people with legal expertise or risk assessment expertise. And then you can see the other things that are listed there. probably if we analyzed the data this year, we would still have finance at the top and maybe a slightly different mix of skill sets being requested below that. All right, another thing that we analyzed at the end of last year was how many of the people from our database had actually during that year, of those 57 searches, been presented for one or more of those searches. So we were extremely pleased to see that it's not just the same old folks that get presented every time, but rather 333 different people were referred one or more times for board seat searches. And some people, as you can see, were frequent flyers, maybe those with a CFO experience. So there were a total of 532 names and resumes, which we got out there in the ecosphere for consideration for board service. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jennifer to tell you a little bit more about our educational programming. Jennifer?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Lisa. So on our first slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about our DDI Board Bootcamp, and we hold this in-person event once a year here in Chapel Hill. We'll be holding it on May 21st and 22nd in this coming year. Our application period will be opening up in July. And I have on here, if you're interested, to let me know that you would like to be notified, because this program does fill up. We have about 45 seats for participants. And like I said, it will fill up. I will usually create a wait list, and we can sometimes get people in from that wait list. We have, it's a 2-day program with 6 or 7 panelists who come from a variety of different board backgrounds to share different perspectives throughout. It's a sort of drinking from a fire hose experience. And as you can see, this little snapshot from our webpage, we have a classroom setting. We do these small breakouts. We also have networking lunch and a networking reception. So a lot of networking can occur. We also create peer pods. So after the program ends, if you're interested to join a peer pod, we pair up a handful of people per panelist, and then we encourage them to meet 3 more times throughout the rest of the year over a little Zoom meeting. Maybe you want to talk about your board resume or more your strategy or whatever topic is of interest for that group. This is the one program that we do charge for. Obviously, we have a venue to cover. Our fee is $750. It's very modest compared to similar programs. Like I said, we will be opening up the registration. So anyone interested, just shoot us an email and we can get you on that list so you can be notified when that happens. Now, we also have our free webinars, no charge on these. We try to build these based on the information in our boot camp. And in 2024, we divided it into 2 series. This first one, Crafting Your Board Journey. And as you can see, we cover topics like your board value proposition, developing your board resume, your online presence. Our other series is Understanding Board Opportunities, where we take a look at many different types of boards other than the public board. And this is also a snapshot from our webpage. So you can see some of these are open for registration now. Our next one is July 23rd. And this one will talk about mature private companies and family-owned businesses. You can see the all-star lineup of panelists we have. Now, any of our webinars that you're interested in, we encourage you to go ahead and register, similar to what you did for this meeting. And we understand people are busy. We're never going to get 100% participation. However, if you're interested in the topic and would like to receive a link to the recording, that's why we encourage you to register, because then it saves me from getting 50 emails the next day. So don't worry if you can't attend, just go ahead and register. Another thing we do is we like to chat with people, and we'll be doing this. We do these chats to help you identify next steps in your board journey and share with you in more detail what the DDI has to offer. You can take a look at how many people have been visiting us in these chats. Going forward, starting in July, we'll be holding 1-hour DDI chats where we have about a handful of people participate. And then that's also an opportunity for you to network with some of those people. And we'll take a look at your resume and can give you a little bit of feedback for your LinkedIn profile, your resume, stuff like that. Lisa spoke about our webpage where we have a clearinghouse of other organizations. This is a little snapshot of our diversity organizations and how we've broken them down. And each one of these, for example, if you were to click on women, you would see a long list of many other organizations out there working to support women getting on boards. That's a little bit overwhelming, this long list. But you're not going to want to join them all. Some of them are quite expensive, but there's so much information. A lot of times you can learn a lot of stuff for free on their websites, and just knowing what's out there and maybe finding something that would be suitable for you. I'm going to turn it back to Lisa to wind us down.
Thanks, Jennifer. So how to get involved is basically go to our website and please register on our database. You can navigate to it from the main page. And we may go ahead and send to Rebecca to send out with our slides some links to the programs that we've held this year so far on the Crafting Your Board Journey and Understanding Board Opportunities, because we do have those recordings. And if anybody wants to go back to them, they are welcome. Also from the webpage, you can navigate to the programs page and register for the program, get on our DDI Board Bootcamp notification list, and check out the many other resources, a lot of which we didn't have time to touch upon today. So we hope you will take advantage of this. As Jennifer said, it's all absolutely free. Searches are free for the companies that we work with as well. The only thing that has a cost associated with it is attendance at the in-person boot camp. So that's it, Joyce and Rebecca. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you both. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jennifer. And now I would like to turn over the mic to Christine Hecker, Account Manager at Equilar Diversity Network Partners. Christine works with over 50 Equilar Diversity Network partners to advance diversity initiatives focused on the boardroom and C-suite. Working closely with Equilar's professional services and private equity venture capital clients searching for top talent and top candidates in the Equilar Exec Atlas database. Christine is a passionate and influential advocate for transformative leadership and diversity. Take it away, Christine.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here. Yeah, as Joyce said, I'm with Equilar. I'm an account manager here. I've been here 2 years. And in that 2 years, I've gotten very involved alongside Belen. Some of you may know Belen, who originally started the Diversity Network. Our data overall as a company, let me share this one slide here real quick. Right. We were founded about 24 years ago. Our CEO founded us. He came out of investment banking, and initially when he founded it, he just wanted an efficient way to get some compensation information on individuals. Almost immediately started expanding beyond that. We now have a database of, I believe we cleared 2.8 million profiles that we are maintaining independently. So that's coming from public domain. We continue to pull a lot of information out of SEC filings. We have our own web tracker that is watching corporate leadership website. So we're also tracking who's listed on nike.com/leadership, et cetera. And as of December of last year, we also started tracking press releases. So one of my colleagues spent the year training an AI tool how to properly extract personnel transitions out of press releases. And so we've added that to our system as well. On the core side of our business, the focus is on compensation, governance. It tends to be VP of Total Rewards, head of comp, those types of roles, CHROs. And oftentimes what happens is they are subscribing to our tools for SEC filings and regulatory things on that side. And part of that offering can be access to Exec Atlas. Access to Exec Atlas gets them access to all of those 2.8 million profiles. And one of two things typically is what happens. A board knows when they're going to have to replace someone. They have a sense of when they're going to need somebody new, whether that's something mandatory, regulatory, like a mandatory retirement age, or they just know someone's promised that they're going to retire when they turn 75 and now they turn 74. So those boards will oftentimes go to those HR professionals and say, get us a list, get us a pipeline. The other thing they sometimes do is they'll sit down as a board and say, who do you know and who do you know, who do you know? We prefer the other option where they come and they say, here's the skill set we need for this role. Here's the skill set we need this time around. And so those individuals can then come into our tool and search against all those profiles. Your participation today and probably some of your participation in some of those other groups I noticed on the UNC Women's tab, there's quite a few groups we've also partnered with. There's some very familiar names on there. Through those organizations, through this organization, you can get access to your profile if it already exists, or we can build one from scratch. And you can put your information out there so that when those HR executives go looking for someone, this is one more tool in the toolbox, one more place they might be able to find you. The next slide, I believe. So we have, we're actually nearing 60 diversity network partners. And this slide is from 6 months or a year ago, so that 2,700 board appointments is probably a little higher. Going to take a quick review of some of the actual things on your profile, what your profile would look like. So this is your basic header, some basic demographic information. We do reflect if you have an affiliation with any of those diversity network partners, we can get that logo on your profile. Kellogg Center I always like to use because they actually have a training program similar to the UNC program, I believe. You come in, you do some training, you learn things about how to be on a board. And so when someone comes looking for a board candidate, that can speak to them and say, hey, this is someone that really put some time and energy into it. They really want to be involved, etc. The next piece then is we can also show your connections. So you can tell our system who you know. And then on the other side, when our clients go in and they see you, they see they already know someone you know, they can potentially go ask that person for the introduction or ask them for your contact information or ask them for the back channel reference. You know, we're looking at this person for this particular role. How do you think they would do? I know I worked with one exec search firm. She needed someone that either lived in California or could travel. You know, hey, is this person willing to travel? Where do they live, etc. We also have work experience and biography. I especially point out biography. That is a key feature. Lisa had mentioned, I think, some of those categories that people are often looking for, finance, etc. So in our system, one of the functions that our clients can use is they can keyword search against all the biographies in our system. So if they're looking for that financial expert, if they're looking for a cybersecurity expert, whatever it may be, they can search against those. And again, if your bio is updated, it's correct, it's up to date, and they search for that, hopefully you show up, hopefully they know someone that knows you, and they can get in front of you. We do also show education and skills, but this is a piece I wanted to jump to. This is our advanced search. This is what our clients can search against. So they can search against some basic personal characteristics as well as some different executive experience. Again, this slide's about 6 months old. At that time, we had 121 former CFOs who had indicated in one way or another that they are one of these 3 ethnicities. So a couple of clicks and clients can potentially be finding you if you fit whatever that criteria is. I also ran a search for cybersecurity, just wide open, women that have cybersecurity in their biography, 2,300 individuals. The piece that I do here is if they're searching for a keyword, again, that skill set, if you don't get a good match between the skill set and the person, the role's not going to be successful. It's not useful for anybody. So you want to make sure that you match that skill set so they can search for what they need, cybersecurity, whatever it may be, and then click over here to our diversity network and layer in who has that skill set and can bring a diverse voice to this organization. And that's something that we train them how to do. They can, again, look through, see how many connections they have, see what affiliations the individuals have. This is, I believe, all except 1 or 2 of our most recent partners. I'll leave this up for a second. If you already have an affiliation with any of these groups, you may already have a profile in our system. So I am more than happy to connect with anyone that wants to take a look at it, that wants to claim it. We'll have some links included with everybody else's at the end. And then just to show too what our coverage looks like on our base data, our public data, we're tracking 16,000 public companies, 750,000 company websites. Again, like I said, almost 2.8 million profiles. We've got a lot of data in here. So a lot of things are available to you. So let us know how we can help.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm gonna, oh, there you are, Joyce. Let me put you back on
I'm
spotlight.
just searching for my audio. Anyway, here I am. Yes, thank you, Christine. And as you can tell, these are very experienced presenters. They present efficiently, and I think what I would like everybody to keep in mind, if you're an attendee, that you will be getting these links, right? You're going to get the actual presentations along with the recording, so you'll be able to reach out. But now is really your opportunity right now that we have this wealth of information really in front of us through these women. If there are any questions, I know you've been introducing each other to each other on the chat. Rebecca, did we have any specific questions in the chat so far, or does anybody want to raise any right now as far as the attendees for our presenters?
So please use the chat for your questions just to keep it manageable. And I'd like, while people are formulating their questions, I'd like to know what you all see as sort of like the number one thing that you find notable about resumes and people wanting to be on boards. What do you think the sort of the one thing people can start to do that you see as the biggest gap as people come into the databases and start to look for board service?
Well, I'll kick it off. I think people need to look forward and talk about the value that they would add to a board, what everybody calls the board value proposition, and spend less time in the rearview mirror about what they've already done. They do need to look somewhat backwards to establish their bona fides to prove why they can do what they're promising to do going forward. I also think they need to be really clear about the size and type of company that they have experience with. So for each company that they've worked with, they need to provide some information about it, not just its name, because everybody is not familiar with every company. You know, is it a private company? Is it PE backed? Is it VC? Is it a publicly traded company? Put the ticker symbol if it is. Even if you're lower down in the hierarchy there, the fact that you worked at a publicly traded company is important. And then in your board value proposition, describe where you think you could add value. And I think it's probably the case that most first board seats in particular, and maybe even subsequent ones, you're going to be at a company that is smaller than the company that you have, reached your highest level at, and they're putting you on the board because they want you to show them how to get from where they are to where you are and where they want to be. So you're not going to go up, you're probably going to go down. So be very thoughtful about saying how you can help companies get from here to here.
I think that's a really important point. I've heard you address this before, and I'd like to hear from both of you too, Katie and Christine, the difference in the board bios, those who haven't really presented board bios, because often that CV is, in fact, here's how I got my skill set. It's really backwards looking. It's not the forward looking, here's what I can do for you because of who I am. And would you two comment on that as well, Katie, Christine?
Yeah, I'll pop in, and I'm going to piggyback a little on one thing Lisa mentioned, which was that middle management type, lower in the hierarchy thing. Obviously, I totally agree. Don't keep your focus in your review mirror, be looking forward. But I do want to mention, I just saw an article, I believe yesterday or Friday, about organizations that are starting to pull from that level, that like one step below the C-suite, knowing that sometimes that's going to bring that experience that they're really looking for. So making sure you do include those types of roles. We also really recommend that you include nonprofit roles where they speak to your value prop. That's kind of the other focus, is what speaks to that. If you did a thing and it was just for fun on the side and it doesn't really add anything to your skill set, doesn't add anything to your story, maybe don't include that one. But anything that does add to that value add to that value prop. And the other piece that I want to mention is, I kind of mentioned the keywords. I have a lot of people that come to me We go through their profile together. We look at how to update things. And I mention the keywords and they say, what are the keywords people are looking for? Well, that's kind of an easy question, but the problem is if you don't have that skill set, it doesn't matter what they're looking for. So you need to kind of look at it from the other side, which is the roles I'm looking for. What are the skills they're looking for? What are the words they're going to go searching for that are going to pull me in front of them? So kind of finding that match between my skill set, what I have, and maybe other terms that at the corporate level, they're going to search for, and make sure all of those things are reflected in that board bio, in your value prop, in whatever materials you have, whatever profiles you have. Those are my 2 thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I feel like most of the CEOs I work with are looking for, historically underrepresented board of directors candidates. So, and they're not looking necessarily for someone who has prior board experience. So, kind of what Lisa and Christine both said, like really be open to showcasing any board equivalent experience you've had. Like if you've been on the C-suite or if you've prepared information for board meetings, like a lot of times what they want is just, are you comfortable with what it feels like to be in a boardroom? I would also say make sure that you're preparing any conversations you have that could potentially lead to a board role. Make sure you are preparing for it the way you would for an interview for a company. Like be really clear on what the company does, have questions about the company, show up as if you are, deeply prepared, because a lot of CEOs are looking for that. Yeah, and then the other piece I would say is just, get comfortable with talking about what type of board member you want to be. So, I've worked with CEOs where they don't care as much about the person's involvement. They're more looking for, they just need someone to open some doors or to have a name from a particular brand on their board. And they might not need much from you outside of the 4 board meetings a year. But there's, a lot of the smaller companies, which is where a lot of people get their first board role, they might need someone who's more involved. So, they have their investor board members, and that's great. But when they start looking to place independents, they want someone who's going to be able to be partnering with them on certain pieces of it. So, make sure that you're sharing if that's something you're comfortable with doing. Like, are you open to the random phone call and being clear on that for yourself, like what works for you in your schedule and just what you want to do. And then making sure that you're articulating that in any profile you have out there, board bio, interviews, things like that.
And you spoke earlier about connections, right? And you in particular, Christine, right? Putting that in your profile about your connections. Does it matter that you're really matching to a particular type of company with your connections? In other words, that person will know other people, or is it merely, hey, I actually know people at the board level. I know people at the C-suite level.
For our purposes, it really is more that focused on the warm introduction. Who knows you well, who can speak well of you, who would go into a boardroom and say, yes, Katie's amazing. You absolutely should bring her in. You should talk to her. She would be incredible on your board. Who is willing to go to bat for you? Because as I said, like on our client side, I'm using the tool. I've said, I know Joyce. Joyce knows Katie. I'm looking at Katie. I'm going to go to Joyce. I'm going to say, Joyce, do you know her? How well do you know her? Would she be a good fit here? And that kind of also speaks a little to kind of what Katie was talking about too, which is knowing what kind of board role you want to have. Do you want to work with the audit committee? You need some financial experience. Do you want to work with the non-gov committee? Have you worked in finance before? You want nothing to do with the audit committee? Those kinds of things as well. Make sure all of those pieces are included and mentioned and featured in one way or another.
Okay, any additional comments? Because I'm going to turn to the chat. Then let's see, we have a question. Wait a minute, that just moved. Do any of the presenters work with mutual fund boards or boards of privately owned asset managers? If so, do you have any tips on what to target on board bio as related to those types of searches, which could be different from regular corporate boards?
I'll jump in again. There are a couple of organizations that I would recommend you check out. One is the Mutual Fund Directors Forum, and it has a director registry process also, much like we've been describing for these other organizations. They also have programs that they run on a weekly basis, and it might be worth a call to someone in that organization to see if you could attend any of those programs or how you might be able to attend them to kind of network and just learn more. The other comparable organization is the, I think it's IDC, Independent Directors Council, that's part of the Investment Company Institute, performs a similar function. So I would, look at both of those resources and see about potentially networking there. Word of caution, we have heard from some folks, once you get on a mutual fund, that can conflict you from other board service. So just be aware that it might be a mutual fund and that might be your board portfolio, although they don't compensate in stock, they do compensate, many of them, quite handsomely in cash.
All right. Thank you very much, Lisa. So what are your thoughts on advisory role as a stepping stone into a corporate board role?
I think it can be a great stepping stone. I think it goes to that board equivalent experience. I feel like if you're part of an advisory board, if you're having regular interactions with the CEO or, potentially with the board, depending on what the advisory board looks like, I do think that that can be a good way to, start that path to becoming a corporate board member if that's something that you're interested in doing.
Yeah, I would jump in. I think, yes, again, you want to be cautious about it to make sure it's not going to suck up all of your time for minimal return, and also understand how it's going to function. My impression, and I don't know for sure, is that some advisory boards are, you guys are on my advisory board. If I need advice from Katie, I'll call her. But we aren't all ever sitting in a room together having like a board meeting or discussion. Other advisory boards, we are sitting in a room together having a meeting or discussion. So understand the role that the advisory board plays in the organization and whether that's one that you think will be helpful to you going forward. Obviously, the network that you can build is really, really important. So, are the people that you will interact with the kind of people that you want to add to your network?
I'll add on that too. In terms of like the advisory board, we kind of mentioned before, keeping in mind like your skill set historically, but then keeping those in mind moving forward. Is this role going to add to my skill set? Is it going to add to my bio? Or like Lisa said, is it just going to suck up a bunch of my time? The other thing that I want to mention that I think can be useful in terms of advisory roles is figuring out how your current skill set or the skill set you learn can translate into other things. I know a number of years ago, I was applying for a job and it needed sales experience. I was like, I don't have any sales experience. Somebody was like, yes, you do. You've done this for how many years? And I was like, oh, to me, in my mind, that was not sales experience. So also looking at your experience and figuring out like, how can this translate into something else that's useful in the boardroom? Maybe you've not worked in HR, but you have XYZ experience that could be really helpful to a NomGov committee or something like that. So figuring out that translation of skills into other areas and how that can add to your value prop can also be really useful.
Okay. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years plus and held board positions within my community in leadership roles. How can I prepare for seeking board positions as an entrepreneur? Who wants to take this one?
I can kind of jump in. I don't know how well I can answer this, but I will say, as an entrepreneur, it jumps out at me that you might be really well positioned to work with some of those PE and VC backed companies, to get in front of maybe some of the PE firms that are working with portfolio companies that are looking to fill out those boards. Obviously, 20 years as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of skills, a lot of things that you're going to be able to bring to that board, to that C-suite that is trying to run a new company, scale up, startup, et cetera. So I would think maybe that would be a good place to start.
I would think Bolster would be a great place for you to get on the registry of.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like a lot of our board members who we place are looking for people who are founders, who have had experience growing and scaling a company, because a lot of the companies that we work with are in those startup and scale up stages. So I would say networks like Bolster, so joining ours and other networks like ours is great if you have, you know, if you do have contacts at VC firms directly or at PE, like absolutely reach out to them as well, because I feel like more people are starting to use businesses like ours to find independent directors, but there's still a lot of just direct referrals from investors who are already on the board that results in board placement. So absolutely, like networking with those groups and also joining networks like ours is a good start.
Okay, so then we have a question addressed specifically to Equilar and Bolster. Could you comment on how many board searches you participate in versus executive searches? In addition, can you each comment on the typical profile of the clients you service?
Yeah, I can start with that. So I'm not seeing that question. I was going to look to make sure I answered all of the pieces of it, but that's okay.
Okay,
So
Ron, how many board searches you participate in versus executive searches is number one.
yeah,
In addition, can you comment on the typical profile of the clients you service?
great. So I would say that right now we're definitely doing more executive searches than we are board searches. That said, I feel like that's kind of varied over time. I feel like we'll have influxes of board of director searches at different times of year when CEOs feel like they're in a good spot to focus on adding an independent director to their board. I would say we probably have about twice as many executive searches going on right now versus board of directors. You know, I do find that executive searches generally take priority because independent directors we think they're a must-have, but I think in the eyes of CEOs, if there are other priorities that come up, we'll see sometimes those searches get deprioritized until they have the time to commit to it. And then in terms of the typical companies we work with, so at Bolster, we're generally working with startups and scale-ups, especially for board of directors placements. I don't think it's ever too early to add an independent director, but generally the companies that we see adding one have already added an investor to their board. So they're generally post-seed, I would say, you know, so Series A and beyond. And, you know, again, we generally work with VC-backed companies, but we also work with PE-backed as well as some public companies as well.
From our perspective, I believe the statistic is 75% of the Fortune 500 in some way, shape, or form with our governance and compensation tools. We don't really hear a lot specifically about any of our clients using our tool to find someone, as I'm sure you can imagine. Nike going out to look for a board member, they're not putting that on Indeed. You know, that's not getting posted somewhere. And a lot of times it's just that informal network, that who knows who, that, you know, behind closed doors interview. So we don't really hear from our clients that they've used us specifically to place someone. But yeah, corporate level, definitely public companies. We have a lot of private companies. I'm working with a few PE firms, specifically on more like business development pieces on the Exec Atlas tool. I know that's the first half of the question. I'm not sure if I answered the second half.
Okay, so then in addition, can you comment on the typical profile of the clients you serve?
Yeah, just mostly public companies, some PE companies. And like I said, a lot of the HR professionals is who we're ultimately working with.
Looks like there's two more questions, and maybe we should, because I want to be mindful that we're coming up to 5 p.m. So Joyce, there's one specifically
Go
asking about
backwards, number repeated. So let's see. I think you were
underrepresented groups in the IT space. Are there particular board search groups that place underrepresented people?
in the IT space. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So to restate that, are there particular board search groups that place underrepresented groups in the IT space?
None that I can specifically recall, but my suggestion would be to go to IT groups and see if they have like some committee or some subgroup that is working on that subject. So whatever your industry professional organization is, see what they're doing on that. And I bet they're doing something. And if they're not, maybe you can get them to start.
Okay. From your perspective insight, and this is addressed to the group, what is behind the change in companies' need for diverse board members when there has been so much pushback with respect to DEI?
I want to jump in on that one, especially. There's two things that are going on. One is it has been statistically proven that companies do better when they have a diverse board. Proven. It is known. They look at stock prices, things like that. That is without question. Alongside that, then some companies see the writing on the wall, so to speak. There can be all kinds of arguments and things in the courts and whatnot about what's required and what's allowed, but ultimately, a lot of companies are saying, you know what, long-term diversity is going to be required. We're going to have to disclose what that looks like. Let's get ahead of it. Let's start building that process out now. And it's going to be better for our company. It's going to be better for our bottom line. Let's start that pipeline, because oftentimes it can be a few years before you have enough turnover on the board that you could get to that point where you have all those diverse voices that you want. So for as much as there's pushback, there's a lot of companies that say, you know what, I don't care for the pushback. I don't care what you're doing. I know what our company needs. I know what we need. I know the voices I'd like to see. And I just saw an article, I think this week, about exactly this, that a lot of companies are saying, you know what, I don't care what's regulated and I don't care who's pushing back. I know what's good for our company. I know what's good for our board. And let's have a conversation about that and try and expand that regardless of what anybody else has to say.
If I may, excuse me, I'm the only guy in the group, but I'm going to ask if I can speak up anyway.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Bob Lamb. I'm the chair of the SEC and corporate governance practice at the Gunster Law Firm in Florida. I also work as an independent advisor to the Deloitte Center for Board Effectiveness, and I'm on the board of WELL Florida, Women Executive Leadership Florida. And this is a subject that's very dear to me and something about which I'm very passionate. Number one, I want to focus on what Christine said. We're no longer in the stage of things where we have to say, well, having a woman on your board or more than one woman on your board is the right thing to do. There's a clear business case that companies do better when they have different types of diversity. Certainly gender diversity is one of them. I think that the pushback on DEI is being pushed on companies to some degree by political forces, but most companies, even in a backward state like Florida, are definitely interested in having more diversity on their boards. They see that it works, they want it. If I may, I also wanted to comment on the theme that I've seen some of the folks on the panel speak about. Christine was one of them. In my role at Deloitte, we conduct programs on preparing a board bio. And something that I see in a lot of people, and I hate to say it, but it's mostly women, are afraid or reticent or reluctant, or whatever word you want to choose, to advertise themselves. You can be assertive and self-promoting without being obnoxious about it. And the best example I can offer is that I see time and time again in board bios women who are eminently qualified as audit committee financial experts put in their board bios language that I would call hemming and hawing. They put it at the bottom. By the time anybody gets there, nobody's going to see it. You've got qualifications. Put that up top. If you have cyber experience or cyber training, put that up top. Don't be afraid to say I. If you can't do it in the board bio, there's probably no place else where you can do it as effectively. And again, I hate to say it, but I see this reluctance or reticence much more frequently in women than I do in men.
Well, Bob, I would have to say that's something that the women in various women's groups have talked about a great deal.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I hang out in women's groups, so it's okay. I know that.
I was going to say, so we appreciate your comments. Any further comments to Bob's? You want to add anything here? We're coming to the top of the hour, so I want to make sure I give you a final word. So for each of you, we have like a minute. Would each of you come up with, for me, I asked this at when we were doing our prep session, what's the takeaway? If there's one takeaway for your organization, for these attendees, what would it be for you? And let's start with, we're going to go alphabetically again, and we'll start with Katie with Bolster.
Yeah, I would say, kind of going off of the conversation that was just had, like, you can get a board role without having had a prior board role. So, be confident in your skills and, translating your skills into what you want, and be clear about what you want, because there's roles out there and you don't need to have prior experience. And I know it can feel daunting, but I've seen so many women get their first board roles over the past 4 years, and it's been really inspiring to see.
Okay, Lisa.
I would say maximize your current network. I mean, expand your network through organizations like this, but for people that you have worked with and worked for boards that you have provided service to, get in front of those people and let them know about your interest in board service and learn as much from them as you can about their path to the boardroom. Enlist their help in guiding you, looking at your documents and so on. It's the network of people that know you best that will be able to help you the most.
Thank you, Christine.
Lisa stole my thought. She stole what I was going to say, which was let people know. Tell people I'm looking for a board role. Tell people I'm looking for a for-profit retail company board role. Put the word out there, because I think a lot of times we also assume, well, I put it up on LinkedIn, I claimed this profile, I did this, I did that. But that's not explicitly saying what you are actually looking for. And sometimes I just would hate for any of you to hear down the line, you mentioned that you were looking for a board role. Oh, I was looking for somebody. I had no idea you were interested in that. So be willing to toot your own horn, put your word out there, let people know. And like Lisa and Katie both said, maximize that network, get in front of people, let people know.
Okay, well, we're getting to the top of the hour, and as we draw to a close, special thanks obviously to our presenters, Katie, Lisa, Jennifer, and Christine. We hope this webinar has been informative and may in fact be one of a series we and or our leaderboard members may bring to you to facilitate your pathway to board service in the future. So thank you all for attending, and once again, thank you to our presenters.